and Classics. My name is Tommy Moriello of the Glen Rothis. This is the handsome Walter Easterbrook of the Bowery Collective and Whiskey Washback. We're coming to you from the Bowery Hotel here in New York City. We are hosting the 9th annual Whiskey Washback.
9th annual, yeah.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Yeah,
exactly.
2 years to the day, right?
Yeah.
I just got the notification on Facebook.
Same here.
Yeah. That's so
This is what you were doing last year at this time.
Yeah,
or 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Yeah. So, welcome. Casks and Classics seeks to embrace creativity, create art. The Glen Rothis is a hidden gem. So, you want to look beyond the classic whiskey landscape and you want to seek after the best flavors. This is the whiskey for you. We have no public visitor center on the River Spey. Leave us alone. Let's make some good whiskey, you know. So people that want to find that hidden gem and take a real deeper perspective into their whiskey consumption, they're going to find something like this. Like that. And the best place to find a new whiskey is at Whiskey Washback, correct?
That is true.
So beautiful. Do you want to tell us a little bit about tonight? What's how many brands do you have here tonight?
We will have about 125 different varieties of whiskey: bourbon, rye, Scotch, malt, Japanese whiskey, Tennessee whiskey. So yeah, there's about 30 brands that are bringing in 3 to 4 or 5 different expressions. So 125 different varieties of whiskey in the room tonight.
Fantastic, and the perfect opportunity to look beyond, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly, right. If you like what you normally drink, now's the time to look beyond and discover something new. That's
fantastic. And so your career kind of started in this very hotel, correct?
Yeah, well, I was a bartender 20 years in New York City. Before I opened up this hotel in 2007, I ran other bars, restaurants. I was at nightclubs, family cheesy restaurants, Times Square area. So I did the whole gamut.
Bobby Van's 50th Street. I have no judgment-free zone.
I got a few more, you know. So on 34th Street and there. So yeah, I started bartending here in New York in '97. I moved down after college, and then I opened up the Bowery Hotel here. But here is where it kind of my career started to change a little bit. I mean, obviously this is a little more. The craft movement was at that time, 2007. So the bar here is a little more elevated. So I started to look at things a little more perspective instead of just slinging the cocktails. This was a little more craft here. So I got to meet different types of people, different types of brand, and that's when I started to think about there's a different way to do things and a different way to move my life beyond what I was doing before and just get a different perspective.
Awesome. And where's home? Where did you move here from?
I went to college in upstate New York. So I grew up more kind of upstate New York. I went to New Paltz for college and then moved down here directly after that.
Where upstate? Where's home?
I'm near Binghamton.
Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town called Hancock. It's right off Route 17. It's one of those towns, if you're ever driving upstate and there's like town of blah, 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 and you look and it's just the woods, that's my town.
Excellent.
And then when you go literally by the town, you're like, people live here? That's my town. I graduated with 58 kids in my class, and then I went to college in New Paltz, which is a little bit bigger.
Yep.
And then came down to New York City. I was just one of those small town kids that was like, I didn't hate my town. I was just like, I'm leaving.
Yep.
I'm going to New York City. My parents were like, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, be rich. And they're like, okay,
well, get a job.
They're like, get a job. And I was like, okay, Dad, I'll get a job. But they were great. They were supportive, and they were like, go do your thing. You go do whatever you want to do.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So, and that's how you got into hospitality, to get rich.
Well, I don't know. If you know anything about upstate New York, it's like like me growing up, my job was all like manual labor. I did landscaping, mowed lawns. I worked at like lumber mills. Like it was just all like outside, cold or super hot, dirty, lifting logs. It was terrible. Like, so when I started bartending, I was like, this is a job. Like, I get to make a lot of cash and meet people and have fun and party and like, again, make cash. Weight belt, yeah, I used to wear a weight belt. That's exactly what I wore. I still have bad back pain, but like, that's where I came from. Then I started bartending. I was like, oh, I like this. I think there's something here, and that's I just fell in love with the hospitality industry, and it just started from there.
There's nothing like being behind the bar in New York City, man. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about people as well, watching them.
100%.
I was at Whiskey Park on 59th and 6th, and you and I probably have stories for days in terms of the patrons that we saw. Similar style of bar, but downstairs, the downstairs bar is gorgeous, man. You really feel like you're walking into something out of Boardwalk Empire. You know, like it is classic New York. So how do you flip from Disneyland New York in Times Square into the style of luxury in terms of the Bowery?
So for me, I kind of had an in-between place that I worked at, and the guy who opened up this hotel was kind of a consultant there for 3 months. Him and I just hit it off, and we vibed, and he recognized what I wanted to do. Like I was running the place, I became the general manager. He was kind of like, dude, you're wasting your talent here. You know what I mean? I was like, I was married to my own story. I was like, I'm this kind of person. He's like, I think you could be doing some other things. I think you could be working. So he gave me a shot. Like literally, if I had walked into this kind of place and try to get a job and someone didn't know me, they would be like, I don't think you're really experienced for this. But he met me, he knew where I was trying to go in life, and he gave me a chance. And he was just like, listen, man, he was a British guy. He's like, listen, man, you just need to learn proper tea service and a Pim's cup. And you'll learn everything else on your own. So that was literally his thing. He's like, I want to teach you proper tea service and a Pim's cup. And I was like, okay. And then from there, it just kind of steamrolled. And I just took things seriously. And I was like, all right, I want to learn other things than like working in Times Square with like a land shark, you know, in a Corona bottle inside. You know what I mean? It was like one of those kind of places where it was just like
it's a different animal.
Different animal. So coming in here, he was just like, I understand who you are, where you're going, and he's like, I think we could take things to another level. And so he gave me a chance, and you know, and I took it. Took it running.
And you're making the most of your opportunity.
Trying to.
But with that, you were seeking out knowledge, and there's the same thing going on Brand Glen office. We're looking to educate people, and we're looking to get the most of the opportunity when we get in front of them.
Yeah.
You know, so you really took the opportunity and ran with it, finding that luxury aspect, but the passion and the desire is what really sets it apart. Like you could do things for blood money, like you would say, right? Club money, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But then you could do things right. And then you could learn the true art of a craft. And sounds like that's what you did here.
Yeah, and it was like, you got to have that perspective. You're like, well, am I going to just go bartend for another 20 years? Or am I going to start learning other traits, other tools, other things besides just the craft of bartending? And that's what I got the chance to do here. It was not even like learning the bartending as much as meeting the people around me, the people that I worked with, but also the patrons that came in. That's when I started to look at things in a different way. I was like, wait a minute, this is a hotel that's like $700 a night. The people that are coming in here, it's not really business, but it's more entrepreneurs, more self-made money, more marketing people. So I started having conversations beyond the bar with some of my patrons that I got to know. And I would literally be like, hey man, like I'm looking to move things beyond just bartending. I'm like, can I buy you a coffee? Can I have lunch with you? Can I have all these things? And if you know, like super successful entrepreneurs, they love to talk about themselves. They love to talk, and not in a bad way, but they love to talk about how they did it. And that's what I started doing. I literally had a lot of lunch. I had a lot of coffees beyond the bar, and just said, hey, what did you do? What do you recommend? You know, so it was recognizing my environment, not just in the bar, but recognizing it other people and taking advantage of that situation to help grow like my business and what I wanted to do.
It's amazing, and it's also a positive mindset as well. Like anyone that's an entrepreneur, you don't meet many negative people that are self-made.
Correct, 100%. I met no one. They were super positive, and I was so green. I was like, and they were like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. Like I know my skill set. I know some things that I want to do, but I just don't know the next step, you know. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is like, what is that first step? You know, especially bartenders, they think, well, I just got to work at the number 6 cocktail bar in the world and meet somebody and then and you know, that's what everyone tries to duplicate. But there's other ways of doing it if you just get your mindset outside of just being at a bar and learning bar skills. And that's the number one I always recommend to people. Like, get outside of the bar and meet other people in other industries and see what they're doing and see how they're doing it. And that's going to get you creative to start doing other things.
And you can correlate that to what you're doing, whether it be developing a cocktail program or a whiskey program.
Yeah, everyone just follows everyone else sometimes, and it's fine. But it's like, if you can get other perspectives and then and that's what I did. You know what I mean? Like, the people I talked to they had nothing to do with hospitality. They were building apps or programmers or, like I said, marketing people. They had nothing to do with this industry. But talking to them, I was like, oh, I think this will work here, or this will work here, or this will work here.
Because it gets this going
correct.
just a little bit.
And the events that I did, people were like, you know, did you go to this event, or have you been to this event or that event? I was like, I have never been to that event. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, I've never gone there. They're like, well, how did you do your event? I'm like, I just saw sort of what people were doing and then talked to other people and then put it all together my way. And I don't know, it's worked so far.
It seems successful.
Yeah, so far so good.
You had a passion to exceed. You had a passion to do things the right way, to learn from people, and I think that's most important. Education is key.
Yeah, I did go to college, but I bartended in college and I ran the fraternity parties in college. So like, what was my degree? I don't know. I'm not a college person. I don't like the big lecture. I call myself a professional doer. So learning that way and talking to other entrepreneurs and just getting my hands dirty and involved was the best education for me. And that's what I recommend to some people. They overthink things and they try to plan so much that they never end up doing anything or taking that first step. I'm all about, you know, just fail, learn, and then you're gonna start to see something growing. But so many people are afraid to take that first step, and I think it's very important just to do it.
And you learn a lot with a loss.
Everything. You learn everything.
A whole lot with a loss.
You learn everything. Everything. Sometimes you learn how to do things, and you learn not how to do things, or you just learn how to do it better. But that's when I started my business, and we can get into that too. It took me 2 years just to get the business going, and then another 2 years to make my first $1. So it was almost a 4-year process before I even got going.
It's a beautiful process, being that you started this business while you were still behind the bar.
Yeah, I bartended 5 nights a week, and I partnered with the wrong person, the next wrong person, the next wrong person. There's 2 people that I partnered with that still owe me money to this day. We'll
find you.
I don't care. I don't care. Look at me now. Like, it's just, yeah. you can check. I'm good. I'm good. Like, it was probably the best thing that ever happened. I'm glad you have my $1,000 or my $2,000, because we're not together. I mean, it's me and my wife now. So like, my wife was, you know, I was working 5 nights a week, started a business. My wife was pregnant. We bought a house out of state all at the same time. I don't recommend you do that. Like, don't do that all at once.
Jump right into the pool.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a deep end.
So, but it was to me, the first 2 years I lost a little bit of money, and I learned a lot. I learned so much of what to do, what not to do, and what I really wanted to do. So it took me 2 years to start my business, and that became the Bowery Collective, and then literally another 2 years to kind of get it off the ground, to where I started to, every year after that, I was bartending five nights, the next year 4 nights, 3 nights, as the business was kind of growing. So it took another 3-4 years to get the business to where I was like, okay, I could step out of bartending and maybe start doing other things.
So obviously a very lazy person.
I have a very strong work ethic. I mean, it's my dad, my family, my upbringing.
When you grow up blue collar.
Yeah.
I just had this conversation with Dina, running the bar program at the Stand. She grew up in hospitality. My first job was on my father's potato chip truck when I was like 13.
Yeah.
Like 11 boxes and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then I was at Sarico's Caterers at 15.
Right.
So I learned how to wash dishes. I learned how to bus tables. When you're in hospitality, there's nothing like that. But it's a blue-collar work ethic that you could bring into the corporate world and into the entrepreneurial world that goes a very long way. Yeah, people think I'm crazy and a little obsessed. Again, this isn't work. This isn't work to me. This isn't work to me. You know what I mean? Like, I would work at the mill 5 in the morning to like 4 at night. I'd get home. My dad would be like, hey, here's a couple hours of sunlight. Why don't you go out and mow the lawns? It was just literally like that mentality, like just work from sun up to sundown. So when I'm running an event or bartending, I'm like, this is just not. It's not work to me, and it's a lot of fun. So like, I put that mentality into like entrepreneurship, and just said, let me just work from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, and I think something's gonna happen. So I just put in the work and I put in the time. And it's confidence in yourself as well, and it's a positive mindset. It's confidence in yourself, and it's doing things the right way, and that's what Glen Rothes kind of prides itself in. Like I said, there's no public visitor center at the Glen Rothes. It's crazy. Let us make our whiskey. That's awesome. You see how it tastes after. That's awesome. That says all you need to know about a brand. Where they're just like, we're very good. Yeah. You'll see it when you buy it in the store. The final result is kind of what, and that's how I look at it too. I mean, it's the final result, and people are like, well, I'm nervous at this, or I'm scared at that. I'm like, why? Because your mom's not gonna like what you're doing, your friend's not gonna like what you're doing.
to me, there's things that I do. So many things I fail. I even failed today. I have projects. I go to my wife. I'm like, I want to do, and she's like, oh my god, what are we doing now? I don't care. I don't care what people think. I don't care how I look. It's the final product. It's the final result. Because then I can say, see, here it is. All that weird things you thought I was doing or things you were questioning, all I care about now is the final result. So anything in between, that's the process.
It's 9 years now of multiple events that no one could ever take away from you.
Right, but if
they happened, they were a success, there's pictures of it.
When I started, my family was like, what are you doing? They're like, what is going on? They're like, my dad pulled me aside around the holidays years ago, and he's like, you're here, but you're not here. Like, what are you? No one understood what I was doing until they came to. I actually do a tequila mezcal festival as well.
Arte Agave.
Arte Agave, and they came to that, and my parents were there, my sister was there. They're like, oh, okay, I get what you're doing now. Now I understand it. But that mess in between was like, I mean, I just wasn't making any money, and I was like super stressed. I was like, I had back problems, shoulder problems. Like I said, my wife was pregnant, and they were just like, no one knew what I was trying to do, and I was like, no, there's something here. I feel like there's something here. And again, it's just the process.
Passion and commitment.
Yeah,
and
there you go.
You were on brand. You were looking beyond it. You found out what it was.
Yeah.
And then through that, as you start taking more shifts away from the bar, which is very difficult because you can make a good amount of money behind the bar and the bar.
Yeah.
You start making more money, but then you have an opportunity with Woodford Reserve. So how did that come?
Yeah, so I was again, it's hard to give up bartending money. Especially at a hotel with $19, $20 cocktails. The tips are very good, so it's like, and when you're starting business and you're starting entrepreneur, I'm a very like, when you're bartending, you work, and you make money. You make money right there in hand. You walk home with a bunch of cash. So when you're doing business, you're like meetings, hard work, meetings, and there's no money.
Where's that instant gratification?
Right, where's the instant? I worked all day, but I have no cash in my pocket, so it was very hard. But I knew, I was like, I have to get out of bartending. And then I got down to my last shift or two. And, I was basically at a point where, like, the F&B director here was like, hey, man, like, you're kind of just working every other Saturday now? Like, what's your deal? Like, we got to, I kept giving away some shifts, and he's like, we love you, but, like, he's like, what are you doing? Like, the schedule's a little messy. So I was kind of made a decision. I'm like, okay, I'm going to leave the hotel. And I worked a lot with Brown Foreman for some of our events, and I met up, like, randomly, just had a coffee with the girl who was running New York, and I was like, hey, I'm going to be leaving the hotel. And she's like, what are you going to do? I was like, concentrating on the business. I want to really focus on that. And she's like, we're hiring a brand ambassador for Woodford Reserve. She's like, would you have any interest in that? And I drank Woodford Reserve. I loved it. I love whiskey. I love scotch. I was like, I'm very interested in that position. She's like, I need your resume tomorrow, and interviews are Friday. And I was like, okay, done. And so I went in, I interviewed, and obviously I got the job. But my background in like doing all the events is what really helped me get the job. Like I think they brought me in because I ran the cocktail program. I loved whiskey. I knew all the things about whiskey, but like my other background with some of the people who were interviewing me didn't realize I did all these festivals, I did all these events, I had all this background in marketing. So that really helped. Is that, if any message to other people is like, get involved and start doing other things, because you never know how it's going to help you in the future.
Put things in the bank, man. And you never know when it's going to come into play.
Correct.
And you're a double-edged sword with that.
And that's what helped me. They were like, looking at the resume, asked me the question, like, wow, you have all this experience. They were like, we just thought you were a head bartender somewhere. And I was like, no, for the last 3-4 years, whether it was paying off or not, I started building up all this other stuff, all this real work knowledge that I was doing. So I took the job with Woodford Reserve and was there for 2 years.
Were you Metro? Were you national? Were you East Coast?
East Coast, based out of New York. East Coast, so I'd do most of the stuff in New York, and then I would travel down to Virginia or DC or kind of the East Coast kind of stuff. But it was mostly the job based out of New York, and it was 2 years. And then it got to a point where I was like, all right, I got to get back to my job, my business, the thing that I created, because that started taking a side. Obviously I was with Woodford, so I didn't do much with my business. We still had the festivals that they were like, it's cool if you want to do that stuff. But I was like, in the back of my mind, there's a guy, I don't know if you follow him, he's called Gary V.
Oh yeah, of course.
And he throws out one of these lines. He's very in your face, but one of his lines is like, if you get a paycheck, you're not an entrepreneur. And I was like, it's a shitty thing to say. Sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to swear.
We'll keep them minimal.
Yeah, sorry. But I get passionate about it because like in the back of my head for a whole year, I was like, he's right. I was like, he's right. He's right. I'm getting a paycheck from somebody else and I'm not an entrepreneur. So like after the 2 years, I'm like, I got to get back to the business. And that was about 3 years ago that I left and just worked on the business ever since, doing all the festivals, the events, brand work. We have a whole tasting program. We had a sales program for a while. So like we really built the Bowery Collective to be a one-stop shop for brands.
And it's fantastic. You have Whiskey Washback, Arte Agave, New Year's Eve, and there's a summer one as well.
We stopped doing the summer one just because we wanted to expand Arte Agave and Whiskey Washback. It was very successful here, and all the brands were like, where's the next city? Where's the next city? So instead of going deeper here in New York with like different events, we're going wider with the ones that are successful for us. And there's two main ones. It's the Whiskey Washback, which we're here today, and the Arte Agave. So we wanted to take those around the country, and that's what we've done. So we're in DC with the Whiskey Washback next month. We just wrapped up 4 cities with Arte Agave. So that's what we're doing. We're expanding those across the country instead of doing more events here in New York.
Fine-tuning, seeing what works, and letting it rock.
Yeah.
It's an intelligent way.
Yeah.
I respect Gary Vee. It's a valid argument with the if you're accepting a paycheck. It's not an entrepreneur.
It was, you know, he's in your face kind of guy, and I was just like, it literally just stuck in my head. I was like, I'm not doing what I want to do. You know what I mean? Love the job, love the brand, like being a brand ambassador. It's awesome. You know what I mean?
Brand life is a life. It's people don't realize.
It is.
And we were talking like people getting away from the bar.
Yeah.
It's like when you become a BA, when you start working on the brand, it's not just going out and boozing every night. There's a lot of work that goes into that. And you, again, being a double-edged sword, you would come up with the most amazing idea for an event. Getting butts in the seat is a completely different animal.
100%.
You know, just like tonight, there's over 100 different SKUs of whiskey in here.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be a bad whiskey down there.
No,
But some brands will go forward, and some brands will get left aside. Right. So it's the same thing with your personal brand. You know, there's many festivals out there, and what you're doing here, we have Whiskey Fest in a few weeks, correct? We just had DCB Brooklyn. There's Tales of the Cocktail. There's all of these amazing events that are for the industry. What you're doing here, you have someone that loves whiskey.
Yeah.
Someone that likes whiskey. Yeah. Someone that never had whiskey before.
Yeah.
You have industry people. You have bartenders. You have salespeople. And then you have patrons and consumers. But everyone is open, everyone is welcome, and everyone is having their own unique experience.
100%.
And it has to be your background being behind the bar and talking to all these people, but how do you cater to that? How do you drive that home?
Yeah, I mean, it is. For me, when I was even bartending, like, learning mixology was cool, but I like to create the space. One of the big things that I always proud of myself at a bar is that you would come in, she would come in, they would come in, all these different types of people at the bar, and then all of a sudden they start talking. And then they start having fun. You know, you got a guy in a t-shirt, a guy in a suit, a girl in a dress, just all, to me, I always proud myself on a welcoming environment. And that's what we try to do with the Whiskey Washback. I always tell brands, when I talk to them for the first time, like, we don't have rules here. Like, don't break anything. Besides that, do what you want. Do what you're a Scotch company, you're a whiskey company, you want to wear a suit? Great. You're a bourbon company, you want your t-shirt with your trucker hat? Great. The event is here. Inside, you do what you want to do and you be yourself. And I think that resonates with anybody walking through the door, because immediately, instead of them coming in and being intimidated because we're all acting a certain way, you'll see it even at check-in. The girls, the guys, they're wearing, you know, nice things, but they're not in a certain way. They're not being greeted a certain way. Everyone who I hire, be yourself. Be yourself 100. If I tell you rules on how to act, that means the first customer that walks in will be like, oh, it's this type of event, or it's this type of event, it's this type of event. Come in and you'll see it. I mean, you've been here. It's be whoever you want to be. You'll see guys in suits, you'll see a lot of women, you'll see all kinds of different people, jeans, sneakers, like, it just doesn't matter, because it's everyone that wants to come in, be yourself, because the brands are allowed to be themselves, and it makes such a better environment. It's a very welcoming environment. The last thing you want to do is to come in here, be intimidated, and not be able to ask a question. You want to come in and be like, I'm an amateur. I have no clue what a single malt is. I don't even know what malt is. Like, that's what I want. I want you to come in and not be intimidated. And we don't, the people that we try to attract to, it's just not a corporate environment. We have a big database of people that we mix it up. That way there's not one group that's going to take over and act a certain way. Again, it's just creating a welcoming environment, from the email blast to the door people that come in to the first people you meet. It changes the whole environment. It's such a more relaxed environment than a buttoned up, where I'm scared to act a certain way environment.
Absolutely, and that's why I really love this event. I've worked with you on several brands now.
Yeah.
But each time it's a different vibe, it's a different table, it's a different feel.
Yep.
You know, and now focusing on the Glenrothes, our brand message is we're a lowercase L for luxury, right? So we're luxurious, but we're luxurious and relaxed atmosphere. Being that we know that we're premium, we know that we're good, but we want to be inviting just like you guys are. And it's great to walk into a room where I'm going to see my personality at one of these tables. And I'm going to follow that person, and I'm going to go to them. And it's the same thing transitioning from the bar to a brand ambassador. Like it's a conversation that I always have conversations with, like, how do I dress now? How does a brand ambassador dress? How do I go from a supplier? How do I go from a distributor to a supplier outfit? It's like, look at your brand.
Right.
Think about the message that your brand is saying.
Right.
You are now the living embodiment of that brand. What does it say?
Correct.
And with you to allow the brand to come in and do that. I mean, when I was with Wyoming Whiskey, I had a flannel shirt on. And I had my big old cowboy hat on. No, not cowboy hat, but a fedora. I was asked if I was Zach Brown several times 2 years ago, which was fantastic.
I don't know why I've never thought about that, but yeah, I can see that, especially with that.
It was great, awesome. But I mean that's Wyoming Whiskey. That's the brand. That's the feeling of it. But Glenrothes, it's a different animal. So I want to suit it up. I want to represent what I feel Glenrothes is, and I feel that I will get the Glenrothes consumer to come up to our bar and talk about that and understand it and know what it is. Specifically, someone that doesn't know anything about whiskey, like you're saying. It's like, why are you in a suit and that guy's in a flannel? And it's like, well, that whiskey is fantastic. You know, like I'm all about a good old bourbon. I love Kentucky. Love Wyoming too. But it's when you want to drink bourbon and drink a single malt scotch, it might be in a different setting. Unless it's Pappy 15, 23, whatever it may be. There's some really good expensive bourbons out there as well, have the same feel as single malt. But you want to be the living embodiment of that brand. And from the live music, the food, the different booths, the setups. You got guys rolling cigars outside. Cigars will always bring people together. You know, whether it's the blue collar guy that's in his construction gear to the guy that's in his full suit coming on out. Oh, you like sticks? Oh, that's fantastic. I'll have one with you. Oh, what do you drink? I drink single malt. And I drink bourbon. And the guy in the suit might be the guy drinking bourbon when the guy in the construction outfit might be the guy drinking single malt. Doesn't matter. And that's 100%. The beauty of whiskey and the beauty of different opportunities and setting something up and how inviting the whiskey washback is. It's a really cool setup.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Going back now and being like, were you always a whiskey guy when you were behind the bar? Were you? I mean, you have two monster events. You have tequila. You have whiskey. So people always ask me like, what I drink. Like, oh, you're a whiskey guy. It's like, well, actually, in the summer, I'm going to drink a rosé. I know I'm 250 pounds with tattoos, but
my background is I drank everything. I probably had, starting from college. I mean, I drank just junk, SoCo lime shots, back in the day to like.
Oh, no longer Brown Foreman. I was going to say Brown Foreman oil, but
but I was always a learner. I drank a bunch of junk when I was younger. I mean, when I moved to New York, it was like, I don't know, blackberry schnapps or pepper. You know, like what was it called, Black House or whatever? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. It was like our shots back in the day. It was just like Black House, like they would call it Blackout. Rumplement's the other one. Rumplement's, Black House, just shots, beers. I was always. Beers. I drank way too much beer, and the beer would always change. I was like Buds to Coronas to craft. I was all over the place. But I was a drinker. I was a bartender. I wasn't very picky. Then my palate started to change a little bit before I started working here. We drank, a lot of whiskey, a lot of Irish whiskey, a lot of tequila. So it was probably a lot of even before here, it was a lot of Jamesons, a lot of Patron. Like most young people, I guess. But then I started to be like, oh, wait a minute. There's other stuff. out there. As I got a little bit older, I was very curious, and that's when I started to drink a lot more bourbon, a little bit of scotch, and I started to just question a lot of things, like, oh, what is this? Like, I didn't know the difference. They're like, I thought just everything was just whiskey, Jameson's, Glen Ross, everything, whatever. But so yeah, here at this hotel is kind of when my palate started to change. It started with the Pim's Cup and the proper tea service. It was like, okay, there's a different crowd here, there's a different clientele here. I have to step up my game, and that's when I started to learn the difference between bourbon, rye, scotch, Japanese whiskey, and tequila as well. I started to be like, okay, there's other things here. And that's kind of going back to why I started Arte Agave, because I started to learn about Reposado, Añejo, Extra Añejo, and everyone coming into the bar. And if you about 9 years ago, it's kind of when that started to change. People coming in, they were like, what's Reposado? What's Añejo? So I had to step up my game, and that's when I started to discover different kind of things. So like right now, I'm probably 50-50 tequila to whiskey. Summertime, probably a little more tequila. Now is like, last night I sat in the lobby downstairs and just started drinking some bourbon, some whiskey and stuff like that.
October in New York is bourbon season.
So I always tell people, like, you can drink it all year long, but I'm always like, October, I want that. I want Glen Ross. And speaking of, I was talking to actually the F&B director here. He's like, I'm coming up tonight. He's like, I want to drink some scotch. I don't drink a lot of scotch. I was like, dude, Glen Ross. Like, you got to go to Glen. He's like, what is? I'm like, just trust me. I'm like, it's exactly what you want. So I was pitching. Yeah. So his name's Samir. If you find him tonight, beverage director here. Excellent. He's finding you tonight. Beautiful. So I'm probably 50-50 between whiskey and tequila, and now that it's kind of the cold months, I'll probably be 75 whiskey, 25 tequila.
I'm with you on that. I like the
or mezcal. Yeah.
Mezcal, it snuck up on me. It's like, I appreciate a scotch from Isla. I really understand smoke, but it's not my first choice. Yeah. And mezcal is kind of that top. But I'm starting to enjoy mezcal a lot more. Mezcal and Negronis all day. All day. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, but mezcal has that kind of, there's so many nuances to it. You know what I mean? You're just like, wow, it's like grassy, or it's fruity, it's highlands, lowlands. It's like that scotch.
Absolutely. There's so much that goes
earth.
into it.
It picks up the earth. Yeah. So it's fun.
And it's fun going through, like, showing people the differences between like a single malt bourbon and all this, and Glenrothes really focusing on natural color, focusing on having its own cooperage, over investment into our cask management system. So 70% is first fill sherry season cask, American and European. So there's a lot that goes into that. So being in the industry, we understand the difference between a brand like Glenrothes and all of the nuances about it. And obviously boots on the ground are very important. You have every supplier in here that are preaching their story, telling their story. So I was saying, being behind the bar, how do you recommend how do you show people the way that suppliers are showing you when they come in as a buyer? When you were a brand ambassador, you would come in and you would educate people on what Woodford was. Yeah. And the bartender would then relay it. How do you relay that to a consumer when you were behind the bar, and especially now? Like, how did you recommend it to Samir as opposed to how you would bring in the conversation at your bar to recommend a whiskey?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just asking a few key questions. What do you like? What's your flavor profile? What are you looking for? What are you looking to do? And just kind of starting there, just starting the conversation, but making sure it's open. There's nothing worse than like being at a bar and someone's hammering something down a consumer's throat. You want this, you drink it this way, You're like, ugh, I like this, like, what do you drink? What do you like? What are you looking for tonight? Or I even will go as far as, what are you doing tonight? I'm going to party. Okay.
It's a valid argument.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, all right, maybe we want something that's not going to be a whole campfire in your face. You're like, or you're like, I'm gonna sit in the lobby. I want to sit by the fireplace. Okay, maybe we'll talk about a different kind of scotch. So I like to just open up the conversation. Again, it's the same thing with the events. The same thing with consumers. It's just, instead of you telling them what to do, figure out, ask the proper questions. What are you looking for? What is your flavor profile? And just nuancing it that way, and then creating a cocktail or recommending a whiskey, and then letting people try it. That's kind of half the battle too. It's like I do all these events. We even do tons of virtual events where people are like, Walter, you probably get this all the time. How do I drink this? And I'm always like, however you want.
Yeah.
But I'm always like, if you want to really taste it, obviously, taste it. Maybe drop some water in there. Start there, but it's your drink. it's
just don't drown in a Coca-Cola. And we're
that's the thing. That's always my thing. I always give my big spiel, and I'm like, if you got something nice, I would not crack open some Coca-Cola. That's always my thing. I'm like, just, it's kind of useless.
Your whiskey, drink it how you want to drink it. Rocks. Right. So I love highballs. I mean, I love, and that's what we're serving tonight. Right. We're serving a highball. Yeah. But but ginger ale, Coca-Cola, you're losing a lot.
There's no point. Yeah. So to me, it's just not. Don't be intimidating. Like, just be relaxed. Have a conversation with people. And let them experience it, and don't preach to them about a certain thing of how it's supposed to be, because I think you just lose people. You know what I mean? Like I said, even with events, you just lose people. Like, you know, I love that you mentioned that there's so many different types of people in the room, asking different questions. Like, that is our goal. Like, I don't want the, you know, all the whiskey, you know, connoisseurs in the room at once. I want to mix. Because to me that's valuable, because then you can break down the whiskey connoisseurs a little bit, and then you can elevate the other people, and everyone kind of gets along. Instead of it being group this and group that, it's like no, we're all together, we're all learning, and then that way, like, those whiskey, you know, those high-end whiskey people, they'll, instead of acting a certain way, they'll break down a little bit and maybe ask me, like, I didn't know that. You mean there's nothing, if you ever host like a dinner where you get like a couple people that are like the best. And then you get the other people that like kind of like get involved with them, and then those people are like, oh, you know, actually I never knew that. Or, you know, you get them to open their mind to learning something new today. And I think that's what's great about having different types of people in the room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those guys are always great at the dinners. It's like, you get up here and talk.
They're trying to stump you, you know what I mean? You're like, all right, guy.
Like, the pH level throughout the fermentation process.
Yeah, you're like, come on, man. Like,
not a chemist guy.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, were you prepping beforehand just to stump the brand ambassador? But there's always one, and then you crack a joke, and then, you know, everyone makes fun of him, and then, you know, but it's like, again, it's creating the environment around you where you can get him down a little bit, get other people up, and then everyone, like, we're all having fun here tonight.
But it's also cool because that whiskey connoisseur that's coming in here to try something, maybe they know the brand, but they haven't tried this certain SKU.
Correct.
And they want to try it. Yeah. They become a brand ambassador themselves, because they're now recruiting people into our target audience. 100%. So you never had whiskey before. It's like, okay, you know what? Maybe you might not want to start with Lefroy.
Yeah,
maybe a little heavy for you. You know, why don't you come on over here? Like, you ever tried Garrison Village? You ever tried
Some people do. They start with the Lefroy. They're like, I don't like Scotch. I'm like,
you don't like that Scotch.
You do. You do. Trust me, you like Scotch. You put this in a glass and taste it, you like Scotch.
And that's our approach, is always cocktail first, right? So whatever event you come to, we're going to have a welcoming cocktail for you. And it's like, we had something at the Campbell this past week. We did a charcuterie pairing. A lot of fun.
Very cool.
But people came in, they never had whiskey before in their lives, and like, how do I drink this? Like, well, start with this cocktail, right? And a cocktail, you want to show off the base spirit, right? So pull out different flavors from it. And this young lady who never had whiskey before was like, this is whiskey?
Yeah.
I really like this.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Wait till later on tonight, and we're going to show you something.
Yeah.
And it's fun because that person that has had whiskey before will then like, try this table, try this.
Right.
And now they recruited a whiskey drinker, and they bring us to, they bring them to the suppliers to will educate them even further. So it's fantastic.
Nice.
And it's great to finally have these events live again. I know that you've been doing a lot of virtual stuff.
Yeah.
In the last year and a half, 2 years has been very difficult.
Yeah.
But now you have 2 underneath your belt, right? 2 live events or 3?
Well, we did 4 tequila events over the last 6 weeks.
Amazing.
And then there's our whiskey event. Then we have a whiskey event next month in DC. So we're basically cramming 6 festivals into like a 9-week period.
So no stressing.
No stress,
whatsoever.
man. No stress.
How do you come back from the year that we've had? How do you activate something like this?
Yeah, I think
what goes on, like, also what goes on behind the scenes. How many people do you have? Every email that I get is your last name, so you have, it's a family-run business at the end of the day. But who do you have running this behind the scenes?
Like me, my mom, and my wife. So you know, going back to like being an entrepreneur, like talking about the first 2 years of my business and then the next 2 years, you're just punched in the face every day, all day long. Like you're overcoming and, like I said, failing. So like when the pandemic hit, it was weird, man, because it wasn't like there wasn't a ton of stress, because I was like, oh, this is just the business again. I had the best business plan. I was like going to do all these festivals. I had like 7 clients I was signing, like 6 in New York, 2 in DC. It was like, I was like, this could be the best year ever. And then pandemic, right? And then I've been getting punched in the gut so much in business over the last 7 years. I was like, okay, well, here we go.
Audible.
Yeah, like so I went all in on offense. And I went, we did a whole thing online for bartenders, which was sponsored by a brand right away. And then I had another brand that saw what we were doing, and he's like, hey, I'd like to hire you as a consultant during the pandemic for 6 months. So it was just like that offense just kept me going. And then I played a little defense, and I like looked at all my P&L reports, all my expenses, all my Amex cards. I was like, wait a minute, I'm paying for a website I haven't been using for the last 9 years?
Wow.
Never even looked at it. I was like, so it got me to like, instead of being scared and circling the wagons, I went all in on offense, kept the lights on, and then played a little defense, looked at the P&L. But that creativity got me thinking, and I started looking at all these like dry tastings online and all this stuff, and I was like, everyone's getting bored of this stuff. I'm like, where's the liquid to lips? And that's when we switched over to virtual events. So we took all of Arte Agave, put it online in October, all of Whiskey Washback, put it online in November, and then from that turned into a whole online cocktail festival in December. And that went through the roof for us. When we built a whole new database, we had thousands of people in our database. Now we have a new database of all these corporate clients that were like, we were part of some of these tastings you were doing. Can you do that for us privately? And then we went to our brand partners and say, hey, we have corporate A, corporate B, corporate C. Do you want to get in front of these people and taste them? And that's what we did. And I was like, December is going to be busy, and I think it's going to slow down. January, February, we had a big corporate client that wanted 400 kits sent out to like all over America, like all this stuff, and then we just kind of hit the ground running, and it was just pretty much word of mouth. And then this corporate client, these people, you know, we work with GE, Snowflake, people over at Pluto TV, DoorDash, like all these clients was like, hey, we've got employees, we've got clients, we love the online events that you're doing. And we do things a little bit differently. We reach out to our brand partners, and instead of just having it, you know, I do a lot of the presentations, but you know, we pride ourselves in being like, hey, you want to like talk to the brand ambassador? You want to talk to the owner? Like the virtual event's been cool because like we've been live at the distillery. We've had owners on. We've had master distillers on. Like how often can you get a master distiller in town? You can't. But like virtually, you're like, okay, I've got this database. Let's get the master distiller on the call. He's at his house, just talking to you from his house. Like those are the ones that are the best and the worst because no one gets off the line. We had like owners get on, and I'm like, hey man, we're supposed to be done an hour ago. They're just peppering the owner with questions, and it's cool. It's cool. Exciting. It's cool to see a small brand or a master distiller on a call. So it's been a lot of fun, and it helped keep the lights on for us. And like, listen, do I love live events? Yes, but the virtual events have been super successful for us. A lot of fun, and again, it's because of the mindset I had of like, don't be scared, don't go get a normal job, don't do anything, just plan it. You know what to do here. You got to move forward, and you got to go on offense. You got to get creative and think what is going to be the next step, and how do you how do you take something that's like a terrible situation and maybe make it a great situation by just keeping positive and trying to be creative?
I think you were amazing at it. Everything that you set up and what you were doing, again, on brand, looking beyond. You had a solid Rolodex, which never hurts, right?
Correct.
But with that Rolodex came from the hard work that you always put in.
Correct.
So it's not like it came easy. Yeah. It definitely came with some work, but it was an amazing way to adapt. And
they also, like, speaking of brands, they've also, like, they trust us to do the right thing with their brand. You know what I mean? In the beginning, when you're talking to brands, they're like, I don't really know you, and we don't really know what you're doing. But now that we've had established events and festivals, like, I can call a lot of brands, like, hey, I've got an idea. And they're like, cool, I want to hear it. Back in the day, when I'd be like, hey, I've got an idea, they're like, yeah, great. Send me a deck.
What's your name again?
Yeah, you know what I mean? And it helped because I was like, I was a head bartender, so like I could get some phone calls, but they were just like, I don't know what you're doing, so, but now it's a little bit different.
You've also established yourself as a true influencer. Not an influencer based on how many followers you have.
Right.
You have a strong brand. You've worked with strong brands.
Thank you.
And you have a fantastic name in the industry. So you are trustworthy. People know what they're going to get because of the events that you have put in. So it's great to have that sense of pride in yourself, and allows you the confidence to take another jump, because your entire career seems to have been, I'm going to bet on myself.
I'm a jump first, build my wings on the way down guy. Like, that's literally what it is. But I don't produce crap and I always bring value to anyone on board, whether I'm going to make money or not. And that started with year one. I didn't make any money. The first festivals I did here, I made zero. I broke even on both of them. And most people was like, and you kept doing it? But I was like, I think there was something there because I spent the money, and you see the events, the Arte Agave, like we have stilt walkers, we have mariachi, we have performers, we have all this stuff that we pay for. We bring in we pay the artists, we pay the performers, we pay the DJs.
You could do it to be there, or you could do it right. And you're doing everything right.
And that is the thing. It's like I want value year 9. And a person taught me on year 1, I was like, man, I need to make money. And he's like, do you want to just make money this year, or do you want to make money for the next 10 years? I'm like, the next 10 years. He goes, well, then just do it right. Bring value to the brands, and don't just look at brands as money. You know what I mean? Like you got to do a service for people, and it's got to pay off year after year after year. So that's what we try to do. You know, it's create value for everybody involved, not just our ticket holders, but our brand partners, the venue, everybody involved has to have value. Otherwise, you're not going to come back.
Absolutely.
Love me or not, if this is not successful,
retention is key. You're
going to be like, hey man, cool, it's a good run, but
you set the tone and you have a fantastic event. It's like, when's the next one?
Correct.
Can't wait.
When's the next city, Walter? When's the next? And that's
huge.
Yeah.
Leaving them wanting more.
Correct.
So shout out Dusty Rhodes. So that was his biggest thing. You know,
exactly.
That cliffhanger ending to bring them all back. But
it,
it's really, really cool to do that. And I believe it's Wolverine, the brand, that said, we're not good because of how old we are. We're good because we stayed good. And you've learned to adapt and gotten even better.
Correct.
You were good to start, right?
Yep.
You start out with a certain... You wanted to hit this, you hit it, but you fine-tuned it, and then it grew organically from there.
You gotta keep growing, and you gotta keep getting feedback, the good or the bad. Like, if I get one bad consumer something, and my wife's like, everyone loved it. I'm like, this person didn't. She's like, forget that person. I'm like, I can't.
That person could potentially touch 200 people.
Some people don't make valid points, but there are some people that will give me a feedback even years ago, and I'm like, that's not bad feedback. Like, that's actually good feedback, and it'll eat me alive. It'll literally eat me alive until the next year, and I'm like, okay, this is how we're doing it this year. So I don't know. It's instilled with me. I need to make everyone happy, kind of thing. It can drive people a little crazy, but like if one person isn't happy, then I'm not happy, and we didn't do a good job.
I hope it wasn't my feedback by saying that your t-shirt and Great Bicep Day was ruined by putting on a button down the first time. I hope that wasn't the feedback. But now that you are staying good and you're back, how does it feel? How does it feel to be back? How does it feel to be back live and not doing it virtually?
Awesome, because everyone involved, like I feed off of you. Like, you're happy to be here, so I'm happy. The brands are happy, they're excited. The consumers, we sold out Arte Agave quicker than we ever did. And people were like, oh, people are scared to come in. I'm like, no, they're ready. They're ready for this. They're ready to be back among other people. So like, I'm happy when other people are happy. Like, it's me, as like I said, maybe it's the bartender mentality. Like, I want to make other people happy. I don't care about myself. I don't care about what's going on. I want you to be happy. I want you to have a good experience. I want the people to have a good experience. So that's what gets me excited. When people are in the room, and they come up to me at the end, they're like, and they thank me. Like, it's always weird when brands thank me, because I'm like, you know, you paid a sponsorship. You did a lot of the work. So when brands are like, I had fun, and they thank me, then I know something is going on, and that makes me happy. So I get pumped, man. I'm like a wrestler for that. I mean, I'm ready to go. Right? You see me, like, we're in my room right now, but like, you ask my wife, like, I got the music on, I put the suit on,
game time,
I'm going down I don't take the elevator, I take the stairwell into it, I open the doors, I'm like, here we go. Handshakes, hugs, like, I'm pumped and ready to go.
That's amazing. Now, this wasn't part of the plan, but what would be your entrance music if you were to come out? It's sold out in Madison Square Garden.
I like a lot of Jay-Z. Any old school hip hop. You get me excited right now, man. I'm ready to flip the table.
Now here I see, me personally, the city is mine, Jay-Z.
Oh,
that's how I see you coming out.
It's got a lot of Jay-Z, New York. You know, he's always talking about like Brooklyn or New York or whatever. So like, that's always kind of my I don't know. That's always kind of my walk-on kind of stuff. So me and the wife, any old school hip hop, early 2000s is probably like our kind of like go-to stuff.
As a Brooklyn native, I respect that.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
But I'll listen to anything. I always say anything from Johnny Cash to Jay-Z is kind of my vibe. But like
I'm a chameleon with that as well.
Yeah.
And like if you put my podcast, not my podcast, my iPod, I still call it an iPod, but my iTunes on repeat, you're gonna find some weird stuff in there.
I'm all over the place. You'll find Korn, Johnny Cash, you know what I mean? Like
Jay-Z.
Jay-Z.
Get a sprinkle of Spice Girls in there. Who knows?
Well, I've got 2 daughters, so there's a lot of Miley Cyrus that finds its way in there.
Dad life.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah. So I'm listening to everything, and it really depends on the environment. Like I said, my girls will love Olivia Rodrigo and Miley Cyrus, and we're at home dancing to that stuff, and then the wifey and I are in the car listening to Mumford and Sons on the way up, but then it switches to like the Jay-Z when we hit the city. So it's like I'm like you would look at it and you're like, what are you doing? Like, what is this?
It's depending on the vibe.
Yeah, then I have Timmy Trumpet in there. If I'm like deep house with some of my workout stuff. Like, yeah, I'm all over the place. Yeah.
But like you said, like I am thankful for someone like you, for people, brands thanking you. Like I'm definitely thankful of this opportunity to get in front of people. Yes, we pay a sponsorship to be here, but it's up to you to do your best once you're here. But the platform and to have this set up, going back to like a boxing event, you could have a boxing event at a gym in Brooklyn or like a church in Brooklyn, or you could spend the money and have it at Madison Square Garden.
Right.
It's a different animal, and
you're
putting butts in the seats. So I'm certainly thankful. And with you've seen so many different brands. What's the best activation that you have seen throughout your 9-year history of doing these events?
It's a really hard thing to answer. There's a lot of brands that, my thing is like this. There's some brands that phone it in. And it's always weird to me because they're like, all right, you didn't pay, and then you had to get product, and you do all these things that where your costs add up, and then you just see like a blank table with a promo model that got hired that day that walked a case of product. You know what I mean? It was just like, I don't even get it.
Yeah, I think this is whiskey.
Yeah, but it doesn't make any sense. I always tell brands that like. And it really depends. Our Arte Agave event is totally different than the whiskey event, but I'm always like, bring something that people can take away with. Like, obviously bring the decor. Make the room pop. Like, have your marketing kit ready to go. Don't just try to like find stuff the day of. Bring the flowers, bring the barrels, make sure it's welcoming. Like you guys kill it. Every year that bar is like, I'm always like, wow, like what is going on here? So like what you guys do, you take the main bar, but it's like, you'll see it too at some of the events. You'll see someone with the main bar and you're like, there's nothing on the bar. Like there's nothing, there's a couple bottles and it looks like just a bar. You guys make it pop, right? There's one year you guys had like fake turf on the bar. I was like, this is awesome. It was like grass and you had flowers and the back bar was going. It was like, that's really cool.
That was Highland Park. Yeah.
Make a memorable experience. Like, why even do these events if you're not going to make a memorable experience? Because you're at an event. And people are like, we let the whiskey speak for itself. Cool. Or you can add the different layers to it. And there's always something like a back and forth, whether it be a takeaway, it could be a hat, it could be a shirt, it could be a pin, it could be a little tiny trinket that people are like, ooh, what is that? They're like, oh, it's a pin. I can have the pin? Yeah, you can have the pin. Like little things like that. And I'll take it back to, we did a tequila event years ago and somebody asked me the same exact question. They're like, what do you recommend? And then I always love this as the event producer because I'm like, I'll tell you exactly what to do. And it was it's still pretty common, but it was like flash tattoos. Like all the girls were wearing like tattoos. And I was like, hey man, you should do flash tattoos with like your brand on it and stuff like that. And the guy came back, he's like, the owners think that's really cheesy. And I was like, I'm just letting you know what's gonna happen. So
it's gonna work, I told you.
So we ended up doing it at our table. We have like a BOCO table to talk about us and what we do, and we had flash tattoos. And literally, there's 500 people in there, 250 girls, literally 250 girls with tattoos all over themselves of like our logo, our branding, our da-da-da. He walks up to me and goes, I should have listened to you. I said, yeah. I said, you're overthinking, and obviously you want to stay on brand, but remember, you're also at an event.
We're also entertaining.
You're also entertaining with consumers. So like when people are just like, no, this is how we do it, and the brand speaks for itself. I'm like, okay, but like you gotta cater to your audience sometimes, and that's really what it is. It's making the space pop, and also giving a, not just say a takeaway. It could be the flash shoes, it could be the pins, it could be a hat, it could be just something where people are like, where did you get that? Or who's that? You know what I mean? Like, so you should play that game at these kind of events because it resonates with consumers. Like, yes, they're gonna taste it and like it, but are they gonna remember you? Right? I'm a visual person. So just tasting something, I'm like, yeah, it's good. But if I could see it visually too, I can see the space, the bar, the things that you guys do that you're gonna do, I know you're gonna do tonight, I'm gonna remember it as well. So make something memorable.
Instagrammable moments.
Yeah, whether you like it or not, we live in an Instagrammable world. Make your space Instagram. It doesn't have to be like a $10,000 whatever. Just add some sort of layers that make your space pop.
And it goes back to how you dress as a VA, how you dress in your brand.
Yeah.
It's how you're representing the brand goes a long way. And then someone leaves that table like, oh, that was good. That was whiskey. Yeah.
Yeah.
No idea. It was
and
bourbon,
hire whether you have an ambassador, but hire the right people. Make sure you hire personalities. Don't just bring in a name just because it's a name. Make sure that person knows how to present. I mean, you probably I see it all the time where you're just like you said, I've been at tastings before where I was like, oh, what's the mash build in the whiskey? And she was like, what? I was like, how much rye content? And she was like, oh, it's 40% alcohol. And I was like, oh, and whatever. I wasn't trying to be whatever, but I was like, okay, I understand, and whatever. We had a conversation, and I moved on. But I was like, oh, you literally just found somebody for the day and hired them an hour ago, and no one trained them on the brand. And again, it was like, what's the point of doing that? So just hire the right person and make sure you train them with some basics. Which surprisingly enough, I still see people that don't do that. They bring in the wrong person to represent their brand for the day.
And there's passion, there's creativity, but it's a special person to want to know that.
Yeah.
Because even as a supplier to come on in and you would have your people, right?
Yeah.
But there's only the Metro New York team for Glenrothes and Wyoming Whiskey is 4 people. Mm. So 4 people is not a lot in that room.
Yeah.
We're all going to be there tonight.
Yeah.
We'll all be talking, but some events also we need to get some promotional people to come on in. So even by educating that night, it's retention. So it's understanding who your agency is and educating them prior to, as well as on that night.
Yeah.
So when someone comes up and says, so I was in Speyside. Are you using the cooperage right on the block?
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I think we probably would. That would make sense. So yeah, that's what we're using. But actually, no, we have our own cooperage, and that's what we pride ourselves in. And the agency person, and even with me, I wouldn't think, because it's going to be one hitters, right? So you wouldn't think to drive that point home. Yeah. But it's like, oh yeah, well, we're in Europe, so I guess we're using European oak. Yeah, it's like, no, we're using American and European, and it's Oloroso Sherry Seasoned Cask, and it's this and it's that.
Yeah, it's learning the basics, but it's also like, if you don't know, you don't know. There's nothing wrong with. I've been caught before. I was like, you know what? I don't really know. Let me find out. Or there's another person here. Let me find Tommy, and we'll get that answer for you. I mean, like you
there's
can
enough
do,
experts in the room.
You can do that too. Like I said, don't fake it till you make it. Especially in like whiskey shows like this. It's just there's no reason for it.
I found out there's this thing called Google.
Yeah.
Where someone could go and they could find that stuff out. The Chris Giglio playbook. Chris Giglio's my boss. Don't ever lie. Just don't do it.
I'm the
it's
same.
not worth it.
I'm the same way because you're gonna get caught, and then So I'm
terrible
the
at
same
it. I start like giggling, like
I'm awful. I'm literally now just like I don't know. I'm like I don't know that. Let me
follow with you about that.
Yeah. Well, the virtual events are great too because I'll have like a team member on with me, and then like I said, they'll just Google it and put it into the chat.
Yeah, that's huge. And I honestly realized that like 3 or 4 in. Jeremy Fonicello, he's the McAllen area manager now for New York, so we're counterparts, and we were doing a lot of stuff together, which is great. He'd be my guy, like guy behind the computer, like Spider-Man, you know, and we switch off. That's huge.
Yep.
You rely on that heavy because the first activation that I did, we were at the stand, we were doing a full dinner, and I got on the mic and I'm like, so my name is. What's my name? What am I doing here? I was so confused. I was like, oh, this is weird. I'm normally having like everything set up around me. Like, I'm all good. I'm prepped. Like, I'm prepped. I know what I'm talking about, but I'm very intimidated seeing people right now.
Right. Yeah.
But it's great. And I know tonight's going to be super successful. Yes, we are going to be dressing up the bar. I'm super excited to make it look all pretty. Yeah. But you are a workhorse. What you have done for brands, you are helping build brands.
Thank you.
So obviously there's a price to come on in, but you're giving an amazing platform. You're putting butts in the seats. You're putting the right people in front of us. And that entrepreneurial spirit really is motivating. From seeing you on Instagram, from having conversations with you, whatever it may be, you always keep it moving, and you're a workhorse. So how do you balance that animal by being the dad of two beautiful girls, as well as being a husband?
Lots of discipline. Like if you look at me now, like I'm nonstop working or cleaning, or like I'm so disciplined. I'm so rigid in my disciplines that it's unbelievable. But like people might look at that and be like, that's not good. But the disciplines have helped me. Discipline equals freedom. I don't know if you follow Jocko Willink at all.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a big, like that's one of his big things.
He's intimidating.
Very. Yeah, he's intense. But he says discipline equals freedom, and that I equate my life to that, because I am set up. If you, like, my wife's like, I need to know. Like I need a calendar invite if the kids are doing something at the school. She's like, I gotta send you a calendar invite. Send me a calendar invite, because I am scheduled from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. And some people might look at that as like, that's not a healthy way to live. But like everything throughout my day, I enjoy doing. Right? I love playing with my kids. I love volunteering at the school. I love doing the virtual events. I love doing the live events. So it's not work to me. But I also know I have to get certain things in during the day, the week, right? Even my workouts. Like I've got to do weights 3 times. I got to do run twice. Got to do a yoga. I got to get that in. It's part of my life, and everyone knows around me. Like, okay, Walt's got to do his workout today. It's just in there, right? Walt's got to do his 4 phone calls. It's in there. Walt's got to play with his daughters 1 to 2 hours a day. At night before they go to bed, I'm reading books. Like, it's just all in there, and I don't have time for like nonsense. I mean, and like I don't watch TV as much as I used to. I don't really follow sports as much as I used to. Like, you just start looking at priorities, and like I like to hang out with the guys. I like to watch sports, but it's not doing anything for me anymore. So I like those little things start to take a back seat to other things. And you know, like I said, I've got goals. I have goals for me personally. I have goals for me, for my family, and I have goals for my business. And those are the 3 goals that I'm going after, right? So I've got to put all that time and energy into those goals. And again, I love what I do. So it's not like work or anything like that. Again, I set a schedule. I have notes, like my phone's right over here. I have a to-do list, and everything. If I talk to you and you're like, hey, can I get a thing later on? I will get off this and I put it in my to-do list. So it's always there. And then I take that and I put into other different boards, and then I have a calendar, and I just set my calendar, and that's it. I literally just have my goals. I set my disciplines. I set my schedules, and that's what I do.
The notebook has become huge for me. The to-do list on a notebook, I have to write it down, and then it goes in my phone, and then my phone's like a Starship Enterprise. It blows up.
Smartphone has, I'm ADD through and through. I'm all over the place. So the phone, you know, I mean, the smartphone's only like 10, 12 years old. So like my business started 9, 10 years ago. I was like, oh, I could just put everything right here. And I literally, anytime I talk to anyone, I put it in my notes. Notes, to-do list. And then I know when I wake up in the morning, I gotta do my to-do list. I don't check my email. I don't check my phone. I get into my stuff. I work on my day first, and then I let the outside world come in, and I start answering emails or phone calls or stuff like that. So I put my phone away an hour at the end of the night, 30 minutes in the morning, and then after that 30 minutes, I start on my stuff. I start on my to-do list, and I work on my time. I get my stuff done first, and then I let the outside world come in. I think that's really key. I think people wake up and they start checking the phone, the email, like, don't even look at it. Don't even look at it.
As soon as you're
hitting the gas, right? And then I'll even look at emails from the day before first, before I look at anything new. And then I won't get into like the day until like maybe 10 o'clock, 3 hours after I woke up. And I say, okay, what is the world? I don't watch the news. I don't read the news. I don't look at whatever. I don't look at it at all.
Best thing I could have done was unfollow everything and stop watching the news.
Turn it off. Don't hit the news button. Don't look at what anyone's doing. You're going to get angry or get mad. It's going to sidetrack you.
Follow Paul Bacall and Jeffrey Morgenthaler instead. It's a lot more fun.
Yeah. Like, so it's just don't get into other people's lives as soon as you wake up in the morning. And that has changed me. I can just work on my stuff, and I have my to-do list. I get that done. I get a couple emails, and then I check the new emails.
It's inspiring to hear how you set up your day, because I try to do it, and I have the to-do list, and I mark it on down. But
Yeah.
it's difficult to follow. And then for me, it's to throw a baby into the mix. And with you have your 2 daughters. But hugging my little girl in the morning and like seeing her at night, like that's my breaking point. That's like, all right, that's when my phone goes away.
Yeah,
I don't care. And it's
daddy. When you get that daddy, and you're like, what am I doing? Like, life is not with this phone right now. So
Absolutely.
like, yeah, and
that's the positivity.
And that's what keeps me going too. It's like everything is, you know, it's my daughter's, and it's my business too. So like I can't fail. It's all on me. You know what I mean? So like I have to put those disciplines in place because it's all gonna fall back on me. So like that's the motivation, and that's what kind of keeps me going.
It's amazing. Well, thank you for giving me your time today. Which
Thank you.
I know it's a very busy day for Walter.
Yeah,
He's got a little bit going on right now. So I greatly appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you, man.
Thank you for being supportive of all the brands, of Glen Rothes, of everyone that's going to be there today. Of
course.
We greatly appreciate you. And where can we find you? What other information can we have?
BoweryCollective.com, Walt Easterbrook at Instagram. Those are pretty much the main things. If you want to check us out, follow us on Instagram at Bowery Collective as well. If you like tequila mezcal, at Arte Agave. But yeah, follow us on Instagram, and you can get all the notifications of all the fun stuff we're doing.
And thank you for tuning in for Casks and Classics. Thank you for looking beyond with the Glen Rothes with us. Plenty more guests as enthusiastic and amazing as Walter. But cheers.